I made over 60% on my positions today, all from following the same trading setup that I trade every single day. And I want to break it down with you as well as the trades that I took today in this video. What's up, everybody? This is Josh from Red Short Trades. Wanted to break down my trade review today. Took a trade on Google, took a trade on Tesla. Ended the day positive in the green. I did take one trade on the Qs that ended up breaking structure. Just haven't been seeing a lot of the same momentum with the Qs and with the SPY lately. Lately, a lot of my big gains and my big winners have been coming from individual stocks. So I've been shifting my strategy to prioritize those more than what I used to prioritize, which was the Qs and the SPY. Just been seeing a lot more momentum and stronger price action around the individual stocks that I've been trading. So we're going to go over the trades that I took today. I hope it's helpful. But first, let's go ahead and jump into key elements that I've been identifying more and more to be able to help me identify which stocks to trade on any given day. And there was a key one that was crucial to us understanding exactly what these three steps were today on Google. So let's jump in. So there's three keys that you need to identify any trade. But before the day starts, you need to be able to understand if you have a higher time frame structure break. This is essential. Most structure breaks and most break and retest patterns or breakout strategy traders, they're looking at very similar support and resistance levels. And so understanding where these are sitting on the higher time frame and identifying the same patterns that you would identify typically on a lower time frame thesis is going to be essential to be able to identify where momentum might sit. The second piece is you want to make sure you're looking for stocks that have momentum intraday. From the minute on the opening candle, you need to make sure you're seeing where buyers and sellers are aggressively stepping in. And this is important to understand too, and this dictates where I actually identify the hours that I trade. In the morning, I'm only trading between 6:30 Pacific and 8 o'clock Pacific time. And most of the time I'm done by 7:30. I usually try and just stick with that first hour of the day because that's where most of the momentum lives. The momentum typically will start to die off throughout the day. And so I focus all of my energy and time in that first hour in the day. The third thing you need to look at is price action at key levels. I'm a break and retest trader. I focus on price action at key levels, specifically looking at pre-market highs and lows, prior day highs and lows, or prior day consolidation points, and the opening range break and retest. So the opening range 5-minute or the opening range 1-minute candles, depending on the setup and what is ultimately happening and going on. And on top of that, I might look at higher time frame levels to see price action around those for different strategies like a gap and go, where the pre-market structure was broken over the pre-market, and we're looking for the stock that had gapped up to retest a key level that it broke out of before moving to the upside. This is what we saw on the Google trade. And so I think it'll be helpful for us to break these down and see how these break out in real time with the stocks that I traded today. So let's jump over to the charts. All right, so the first stock that I want to review is this Google trade. If I go back to the daily chart, there's kind of a key thing that we saw here. If you see this box drawn out, this is a gap that was created from the stock jumping down from this point here back in July down to here on July 24th. And we created this gap that ultimately needed to get filled. It did fill here, ended up going to the downside, but we broke above this gap level. So specifically what we saw was this 180, 134 level. So overnight, if we now jump to the 4-hour, we can see that pre-market, we broke straight through this, gapping up overnight. We completely blew through what was forming here on the 4-hour chart, which effectively was this double top high that we had, a lower low that was created, and we broke through this double top high, which was the top of this zone of this gap fill. And so we ended up seeing that breakout overnight. So what I was interested in was to capitalize on that momentum that we effectively saw with that breakout. So if we jump into the 1-hour here, we can see it broke through that. And we jump now into the 5-minute. Now this early day in the pre-market, I had marked out my pre-market level here. Let me change the color. I usually use yellow for my pre-market levels. So I mark out my pre-market level here, and we had broken up. We were above that level. I was looking for either a break above the pre-market level for a pre-market retest, or I was waiting for some aggressive momentum at the top of this gap. And what it ended up doing was it went all the way back down to the gap that it just broke out of, We saw some aggressive selling stepping in here. This is all on the 1 minute, by the way. So we saw this indecision candle come in, but the minute we tapped into that block, we saw a big gap here. We pushed down even further into that block, but then we saw buyers step in really aggressively. And if you saw it on the 1 minute, it started just reacting and shooting up. We ended up getting in here. We ended up getting in here just as the candle was breaking above the body of the first opening candle. And we were able to ride this trade all the way up through the pre-market high. Ended up taking a few shares off, a few options off of the pre-market high. I wasn't sure how it was going to react there, but held all the way through this move. We saw a beautiful move up, and we actually ended up getting a second retest here. If I was waiting for the pre-market high retest, we ended up getting that retest here, and the second profit target that I had was this 186 level. So there were two potential entries that you could have taken, all from the same thesis of a higher time frame breakout, a pre-market gap up overnight, and a break back into retest. So we broke above the break and retest of that gap level, or a break above the pre-market high and a retest of that pre-market high before moving to the upside. And so we saw a really nice move here. The contracts went up a really decent amount. So I think we bought them at 250 or so, or I think, no, actually it was less. I think we bought them at like 150, and they juiced all the way up to over $3 for the contracts that I was buying. So there was a really sharp move here. And the overall trade for me, because of how I was scaling out, ended up being around 50% or so, but ended up seeing some nice profit. Took profit up here. I took profit at my 1 to 2. And then I held trailers all the way through here. I actually ended up getting stopped out on my last trailer as we broke below this pre-market level, which was a right action because although it bounced, it ended up dipping all the way back here into this level here. So break and retest, classic. Drew out the levels just by looking at the higher time frame on the daily, moving down to the 4 hour and seeing the gap up, moving down to the 1 hour, and seeing this gap up overnight above this key level. We broke this high that was formed, and then we saw a retest right into the open of the day to be able to enter our trade. Super solid trade. So definitely a win here. The next trade that I ended up taking today was on the Qs. And we saw this nice momentum up. I was waiting for a really nice retest of this pre-market high. Didn't end up getting that, but we still saw aggressive buying momentum all the way up here. And I saw this retest candle that was coming in play here off this high a day. So I was playing a break of the high and day and a retest. Ended up not working out. We kind of pulled back into this 1 minute order block, pushed a little bit higher, but didn't quite get to a 1 to 2, and it ended up lazily moving down here. This is an interesting thing to take into account is when daily momentum is slow, especially around the holidays, we typically see daily volume slow down. It's really important to pick our tickers a lot smoother. I ended up taking a pretty decent size on this. So this moved me back into loss range for the day. So I went red on the day with this trade, but then the last trade I took on Tesla ended up pulling me back into the green. And so this is where I've been finding that the Qs and the SPY have just been really choppy lately. If you actually look at a lot of the price action, it's just been kind of lazy. There are some days where you have gap ups overnight, and those have been the really nice moves, but very seldom do you have these really big swing days that are really nice momentum days. A lot of sideways action here. And so it's just been a lot trickier over the past couple months to trade the Qs and to trade the SPY. And so I've been focusing a lot more time on the bigger name stock tickers here. And then the last trade that I ended up taking was on Tesla. Now, Tesla had been a swing trade that I've traded over the course of the past week. Ended up making some decent profits, but I was looking for a potential intraday momentum play. We had this pre-market level on Tesla that I had one of my last remaining trailers ended up breaking below. So it stopped me out of my last trailer after a really nice swing position that I had moving to the upside here. But it pulled all the way back down here to this consolidation point and this pre-market level here at this 378 level before started pushing back up to the upside, kind of flat pre-market. But we saw a really nice intraday momentum move. And so what I ended up seeing here was a big push up. Ended up waiting for this push to effectively tap into this 402 level. My first position on Tesla ended up being this retest of the 400. pushed up here, pulled back. We didn't quite get pulled out of the trade. And then we saw a really nice push up to this 404 pre-market level, or prior day level, the prior day high. And so that was the last place to ultimately take some trailers. And then the stock just ended up kind of gravitating to the side. There was another really nice move here after a really strong reaction on this 403 level. So it pulled back below this 402 level here, which was a prior bounce point, pulled below, pushed off it to go lower. So it didn't look really interesting, but ended up continuing to move back to the upside. So you could see how the market structure is changing here. There's market structure here, a lower high, a lower low. We break that lower high with this higher high, and which is effectively starting to show us a change of structure. We put in a higher low over here, and then we break this higher high level here. And so what I ended up seeing here was this level here, which was a higher high that was created, and I was waiting for a break of that and a retest. And what we ended up seeing was a pretty quick retest on this, waited a few candles to get some confirmation, but ended up pushing all the way up here, which was a really strong trade for us to potentially signal. Now, I didn't get in on this one, but as it pulled back down into that very same level, I saw really aggressive price action as it pulled all the way down back into that level, but then pushed up, and we saw aggressive momentum buying into that. We had to sit through some consolidation, but ended up seeing it break all the way back up to these levels here. Ended up getting stopped out. I stopped out as it closed below this 407 level. Ideally, if it kept going and broke that 409 level, it would have been a great straight shot up to the 414.50s. So overall, solid trade on the day. And so really happy that I ended up taking the Tesla trade. The Google trade was a great morning run. The Qs put me back, which is unfortunate. I think moving forward, I'm going to focus less on the Qs, less on the SPY, to be able to focus more on just the individual stocks that are showcasing really strong momentum intraday. So there you have it. Look for higher time frame breaks. The same things that we're looking for, break and retest, flag patterns that are bullish or bearish on the higher time frames, are great signals that I'm finding that increase the win rate that you're going to have. Where if you're identifying a stock that has a higher time frame break, looking intraday at that particular stock, because the momentum is on your side. And so there's a higher chance at having those ultimately create some winners for you. I hope this is helpful. We definitely went over a few different things: higher time frame structure breaks, momentum intraday, price action at key levels. All things are super important for creating a really consistent day trading momentum for your portfolio. So if it was helpful, definitely give a like, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you're learning. This is what I'm learning, and I'm continuing to learn as I continue to build the portfolio up. But I hope it's helpful. Definitely hit that like button, pound that subscribe button like you mean it, so you can get more content here from everything that we're doing at Red Short Trades. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.